I think it was so impactful because the three of us were hungry. And when you're hungry, you don't mind putting in the work. And when you're passionate about making a difference and making an impact on the lives of young people, you roll up your sleeves, you do what has to be done, you don't worry about the money, and you work hard. And I think that's what the three of us did. And the three of us did that from our different experiences. Jeff came to the table as a high school administrator. That was his first time really working with middle schoolers. You came to the table as a gen ed middle school teacher. I came to the table as a special education person, as an alternative ed person. And so when we put those three skill sets together, we knocked out the park.
What's up, everybody? This is Matthew Mason. I am the proud host of the H.O.T School Leaders Podcast. Just a reminder that H.O.T stands for honest, open, and transparent. The goal of this podcast, this YouTube channel, is to really just spit free game to individuals who are coming into the game of school administration, or you've been in it for a little bit. We just wanted this to be a place where you could come, kind of take your shoes off, let your hair down, listen to some good things to help encourage you, inspire you and challenge you, so that way you can get back in the building, help kids, help your parents, help your staff, and help your community. So I'm excited about this because this individual right here, he's not smiling right now on here, but he has a great smile, a great man, great individual. And you may have seen the other episode with Jeff Milner. These are two individuals. Dr. Herb Monroe is the person who got me to even be thinking about administration. But Jeff Milner and this individual who I'm about to introduce are the people who showed me what it took to be an administrator. Because we worked together in the summer, did not know each other at all. And I will tell you, I got a master class during that summer of just what it takes to be in there, dress to impress, mentor kids, learn about special education. We were over a summer project at Brooklyn Middle School, or a summer school at Brooklyn Middle School, and we ran it like a school. Like, this wasn't like we just had something that we were doing on the side. We ran that thing like a real school. And from there, everybody has branched out. I've become a principal. Jeff's become a principal. The crazy thing is, this individual kind of like skipped the whole principal thing and has moved up and become a superintendent. And so he is the superintendent of West Point, but he has a plethora of information because he's done a lot of different things. A young leader too. So he's going to give us some valuable information. But I would love to introduce you all, Dr. Larry Frazier. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, sir. I'm good. It is good to be here. Thank you so much for this invitation. This is the first time that I've ever done anything like this, but I'm excited for this opportunity. I'm excited for where we have come, and the journeys that we've had in our careers. Starting out from that experience at Brooklyn Middle School, and I will tell you, man, that was one of the best experiences of my career. And being able to connect with you, being able to connect with Jeff in that moment, in that experience, that has definitely helped me and helped develop me as a leader. So I am humbled to be here, to be a guest on this podcast, and I appreciate the invitation. And I just hope that I have a few tidbits to share with folks today that will help them in their leadership journey.
No, I know you do. So for the guests the viewers and everybody out there, we try to get up every once in a while, just to see how each other are doing. I will totally agree with him. That was probably the most impactful time as an educator, not just becoming a school leader, but just as an educator for, what is that, a month and a half, maybe, that we were together.
Month and a half running summer school. And in Henrico County or in any other location, you did not often see where three Black males were entrusted to run a program. And for us, it was the three of us. It was summer school coordinator, summer school assistant coordinator, special ed coordinator for the summer. and we truly did some amazing things that summer.
So, and we can even start there, and then I'm gonna get into your leadership journey. What do you think? Why do you think I don't say work together so well, but why do you think that time was so impactful? Because we had mentor programs going on, like we brought in speakers, like we had um the way we did lunches, like we didn't necessarily. I think we started was like we didn't even walk the kids to lunch. We trusted them. We made sure they got there on their own. Like what we did with our special education students, like you being there, and I will tell you that was the first time for me that special education really became like real because
Mhm.
you were really big on making sure that all those kids that were in that summer program were getting all their accommodations, getting all the supports that they needed. The teachers had all the resources that they needed in order to make sure those students were getting everything that you needed. Why do you think that was so impactful for us?
Well, I think another thing that we did was we also like truly celebrated and supported our staff, and that went a long way, and that helped to make that helped to make a huge difference. I think it was so impactful because the three of us were hungry,
Mm.
and when you're hungry, you don't mind putting in the work. And when you're passionate about making a difference and making an impact on the lives of young people, you roll up your sleeves, you do what has to be done, you don't worry about the money, and you work hard. And I think that's what the three of us did. And the three of us did that from our different experiences. Jeff came to the table as a high school administrator. That was his first time really really working with middle schoolers. You came to the table as a gen ed middle school teacher. I came to the table as a special education person, as an alternative ed person. And so when we put those three skill sets together, we knocked out the park.
Yeah.
And you're right. We ran school. It wasn't a summer program. It wasn't just summer school. We went in classrooms. We did observations on teachers. We reformed behaviors. We made phone calls home to let parents know if a child wasn't in school, they needed to be there, and the importance. We rolled our sleeves up to make a difference in the lives of our students. And that's what made the impact. And because of those relationships that we built with each other, and because of the relationships that we were able to build with the students and the teachers, our program was successful. And because of that, I will never, never, never forget that experience in my career and the bond that I've been able to form with you and with Jeff.
Yeah, I would tell anybody who, if you are trying to get into school administration, I think a key word that Dr. Frazier brought out is hunger. Because not that I haven't heard that word in a long time, but we wanted it. I can tell you just being right behind them, like soaked it up. Like everything they brought to the table, I was listening to. I think that summer, I think all of us were applying in some way, shape, or form to
You
different
remember,
things.
you
Yep.
remember that summer, I had applied for so many assistant principal positions in Henrico County and other places. And I was at the point where I felt like I was being looked over because I was not in a comprehensive school at the time. And so, because I was in an alternative school, I felt like I wasn't getting the same opportunities that people were getting that were in comprehensive schools. And so, that summer, while we were sitting at the table, a middle school assistant principal position came open, and I said, I'm not applying. I'm just not. Like, been there, done that, never selected for an interview. You and Jeff told me, you better apply for that job.
Right.
I applied for that job. And within the next few weeks, I was starting my new position as assistant principal at Fairfield Middle School. Another opportunity that helped to change and helped to put me on the trajectory to get to where I am now.
Hey, everybody, this is Matthew Mason. I am the host of the Hot School Leaders Podcast. Look, I just wanted to take a second to tell you thank you. Yep. Just want to tell you thank you for showing up every Thursday for our guest, for some time just to be honest, open, and transparent. The goal of this podcast, the goal of this YouTube channel is to inspire, to encourage, and to challenge you in your leadership journey. And as we are growing as school leaders, making sure we're better and showing up every day for all of the stakeholders who are in our schools. Look, I just want to take a couple seconds to ask you to do a couple of things. First off, I need you to share. Then I need you to follow. I need you to like. I need you to comment. I need you to subscribe. I need you to do all of those things, because when you do that, it's going to keep pushing us out there. We're going to get more resources and hopefully make this thing better for you every week. So again, if you can subscribe to the channel, make sure you follow the podcast. We're on Apple and we're on Spotify. Make sure you comment, because when you comment, it lets us know how we can get better. Make sure you do all of the things that I shared earlier. So again, we're hot leaders. We're honest, open, and transparent. Again, I tell you thank you. Let's get to the episode. So let's get there. So let's go there. So start from the beginning. Because like, again, you have, I think, a very wide girth, whatever the word is, of just experiences that have now led you to be leading a whole school division. So start from the beginning. Like, what is your leadership journey? How did you get to this point?
So if you want me to start from the beginning, I'm gonna take this way back.
Oh, go
I'm
for
gonna
it.
take this back to my time as a student in school. And so I knew when I was in the sixth grade that I wanted to be a teacher. And so it bothers me today when you talk to young people and they don't know what they want to do in life, because I knew, like, no one could tell me from the time I was in the sixth grade on that I was not going to be an educator. But I knew
Wow.
in sixth grade that I wanted to be a teacher. I knew in seventh grade that I wanted to be a principal. I knew in eighth grade that I wanted to be a superintendent.
Hold on,
And
before you even get there, before you, I want. So this is weird to me. I literally had a friend. He and I were talking, and we were like, "You never hear kids say, like, you may hear a student once in a while say, I want to teach.' I don't know if I've ever heard of anyone say, I want to be a principal and I want to be a superintendent. And I will say some of that's on, I can speak to myself, right? Like, I don't push the profession enough to any student to be like, hey, yeah, this is something that you may like do. So sorry for interrupting, but I think that speaks volumes that you are what, seventh and eighth grade, and you're already looking at, I want to lead a school and school division.
Matt, so when I was in sixth grade, I end of the school year, you're celebrating students, celebrating the school year. We did sixth grade of superlatives, and I will never forget this. The superlative that I got in sixth grade was for being the most observant.
Wow.
And so that superlative tells you and shows you why I wanted to make these steps in my career, why I saw these things in my future. I would sit back as a middle schooler and I would watch my middle school principal. I would watch how, one, he commanded respect. One, he knew every student's name in that school. He greeted students every morning at the buses. He knew every teacher. He would come around to classrooms and check on teachers and check on students. He had respect from everyone in that building. And students knew, staff members knew, if you had an issue, you had a problem, you could go to him and he would help you. And I wanted to be able to do that. And so from that point on, going into my eighth grade year, I then started looking at other leaders in the division. And you're right, most middle school students are not thinking about any of those people that come into schools and that are walking around
Right.
and checking up on things. They're not. Like, that's not where their mindsets are. But I was as a middle schooler. And I will tell people, my middle school years were some of the best years in my school career. More so than high school. Like, I loved middle school, and I think that's why I ended up becoming a middle school teacher.
Wow.
But seeing the superintendent um um come to the school, participate and work with the staff, seeing community activities and the superintendent being involved in those things. I guess it didn't help that my entire time in middle school my mother was the president of the PTA. And so it
Yes.
helped me be in certain places and spaces, right? And so I would see these things and I was like, I want to do that. I also remember a gentleman from church, from our church association, who was retired, and he was an assistant superintendent, the first black assistant superintendent in King William County, where I grew up. And I would just sit down sometimes and listen to him talk and listen to his experiences and listen to the things that he had to share. And it was just intriguing to me. And I remember as a middle school student saying, I want to do that one day. I want to be able to have an impact. I want to be able to help to make sure that students get a quality education.
So you go from that. Obviously, you go to school, and I think for me, what was intriguing when we met was kind of how, in reality, for you, you were put into leadership roles before you kind of had the title of leader in those
Yes.
roles. And so my dad was a pastor. He still is a pastor, but he would always tell me that he was like, you're going, you start doing the title before you ever get the
Mhm.
title. So once
Right.
if you're already doing that, then you'll get there. So I apologize. Go for it.
No, so went to Virginia State. My goal was to become a history education major. I was a history education major. My goal was to become a history teacher, middle school history teacher. Um, my first senior year, remember said that my first senior year, I called my mom and said, Mom and Dad, like I'm changing my major. They said, What? You about to graduate? What are you doing? I said, I want to do special ed. Um, and so I stayed in school an additional year, and I took all the courses that I needed to become a special ed teacher, and then student taught in special ed. I think originally I was probably running from special education because my brother, that's 4 years younger than me, we started school at the same time. He
Okay.
started he started preschool the same time I started kindergarten, and that's because he has a disability. And we know that students with disabilities and with an identified disability can start school at 2 years old. And so he started school at that too. And growing up, he frustrated the heck out of me because I would always try to help him and work with him, and we never got along because I wanted to be that big brother and help him, and he never wanted help. Um, but that was my first encounter with special education, and later on, reflecting, I had other encounters with special education as a high school student. I was always that one helping students with disabilities. Before there was true collaborative classes or co-taught classes, I was a collaborative teacher. Because I always wanted to make sure that students that struggled, that they got the help that they needed. And so at first I feel like I was running from special ed, but later, that my first senior year, I decided that I wanted to be a special education teacher. So I did that, student taught, graduated, was hired in Henrico County, at Wilder Middle School. In my interview to be a special education teacher at Wilder Middle School, the principal at the time, she said to me a couple of things. She said, I see more in you than a classroom teacher. That was number one. And number two, she said, you're going to work here in my school. If I offer you a job, would you take it? I did not know what to say. I looked at her like she was crazy. And then she said again to me, she says, Boy, I'm offering you a job. Do you want this job? And all I could say was, Yes, ma'am. That was my first mentor within Henrico County Public Schools. And I am forever grateful for Christy Forrest. Christy Forrest, one of the best principals that I ever worked for, and gave me so many opportunities and opportunities. And I'll talk more about her. Um, but in that moment of being hired as a special education teacher, I assumed leadership responsibilities my first year.
Yeah.
Um, at that time, our school was really known for PBIS and had been recognized by at the state level for PBIS, positive behaviors intervention and supports. And so my first year teaching, I became the eighth grade lead person for our PBIS program. How does that happen? the
Yeah.
way the The way that happens is because people trusted me, people invested in me, people saw things in me. And because they saw these things in me, they gave me opportunities to help me in my career. And so going from that to the second year becoming the safety chair for the school, from being safety chair and helping to run the tutoring program and Saturday academies. My third year of my teaching career, I was an administrative aide, and the only administrative aide at Wilder Middle School at the time that did not have their leadership endorsement. I didn't even have a master's degree.
So
And
can I share this with everybody too? Because I want because again, a couple of things. I think it's incredible that she saw that in you from an interview, right? Like, so an interview comes, she sees that. So everyone is aware too. So when you said, I think you said your second year, you were the safety chair. So the safety chair, and I'm assuming you had to do the same things because I had to do some of these things when I was at Brooklyn. So the safety chair in the school in Henrico County is a big thing. So it's
Mhm,
not just hey, we come, we meet every once in a while, we talk about how things are going, and we don't like we had actual audits
mhm,
for the
mhm,
division where people would come in from retired individuals would come in, see if everything, say we had days where they would come in, look at drills to see if everything was on point. So you're talking about an individual who was in his second year who was being trusted in reality with the safety of the building and making sure everything is on point. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just want to give our listeners and our viewers a bigger scope of like this is what's going on
right,
here with you.
right. And so and you know that those major safety audits happen every 3 years. And so the year that I became safety chair, the school was going through that major audit. And so I worked hand in hand with the assistant principal at the time to make sure that everything was straight for our audit. And we got flying colors. Um, and so from there I became an administrative aide. And I'll never forget at the end of the school year, my third year, when I became after being an administrative aide for a year, the associate principal, because that was the first year that Henrico rolled out the associate principal role. And
Okay.
our associate principal was new to that building. He came to me at the end of the year and he was like, he was like, I was just so fortunate that I was able to end up with an experienced administrative aide. And I said, Mr. Amico, this was my first year as an administrative aide. He was like, Larry, there's no way. I was like, this was my first year. I learned and took it all in and did what you asked me to do. And that's just how I've always been in my career.
Yeah.
And so from that point, at the end of that third year teaching, Miss Forrest was selected to go to go to a new program, which was the Grad Center, and the Grad Center was Henrico County's alternative ed program. Henrico County had outsourced alternative ed for a while, and it didn't work. And so Miss Forrest went over to start this new program. It was grades 6 through 12. We were at our end of the school year middle school dance. Miss Forrest pulls me to the side and said, I want you to go with me. I was like, what? What do I know about alternative ed? Nothing. She says, you'll be fine. You're going with me. I never applied for the job. I never asked for the job, but I still have this voicemail on my phone from Leslie Traylor in Henrico County's Human Resource Department calling me and telling me that I was being moved to the Grad Center.
Wow.
And Miss Forrest told me, she says, you're going to with me to the Grad Center and you're going to be my administrative arm at the middle school location. Because we were in two locations. The middle school location was on Williamsburg Road, was on 9 Mile Road, and the high school location was on Williamsburg Road. And Miss Forrest was essentially the only administrator between these two. And so she wanted me there to be the responsible person, the administrative aide at the middle school location. Fourth year, this was going to my fourth year teaching. At the time, I'm starting my administrative my program in administration and supervision, and I took that job and poured all that I could into that job to make to and made sure that our students, our staff, and everyone had what they needed to be successful. Again, another great opportunity in my career because someone took a chance on me. Someone saw something in me. Someone saw that I had what it took to do that job. Did that job for 2 years. Finished my master's. Um, um, we worked together that summer. Then I became an assistant principal at Fairfield Middle School. And that opportunity at Fairfield, it was funny because a lot of people thought that I came in the door as a seasoned administrator.
Uh,
And while I did a lot of the work, I was just an administrative aide. I had not been an assistant principal, but being an administrative aide, I had to do a lot of things that assistant principals do, that associate principals do, some things that assistant principals that building principals actually did.
right.
Um, and those things helped prepare me for that time at Fairfield. At Fairfield, I came in as eighth grade administrator. Those My students that year I was their third administrator in 3 years. Every
Okay.
year they had a different assistant principal, and here I come. I was At the time I was 28, 27 or 28. And so, most of the teachers and staff in the building were older than me. Um, I pride myself on having a baby face. And so, oftentimes people looked at me like, who is this baby that's gonna tell us what to do? Who is this young man that's gonna tell us what to do? But I went in there with the same approach that I've always had. You go in and you build relationships. You go in and you show people that you're a hard worker, that you're hungry, and that you want to and that you're student centered. When you do those things, people will get on board. Now, will there be resistance? Absolutely. And there was at times. Um, and it was okay because we were able to work through it. But those again were those 3 years that I was at Fairfield were enjoyable years. And we did good work. Instructionally, I was given the science department. I had a special ed background. History was my passion. Was given the science department. The first year, working with our teachers, working with our students, the science scores went up 13 points. The first year,
Wow.
and that is because we really dug into the data. We looked at what were the needs of our students. The first thing that I identified was that our students struggle with reading. They struggle with the literacy piece, and so students can't pass a test if they can't read a test.
Yeah.
And so we worked with teachers to make sure that we could incorporate that literacy into into our science classes, into our science curriculum. And we just kept plugging and made significant gains. We also focused heavily on behaviors. We focused heavily on just building operations and just doing things to make things more effective at the school. I am also indebted to Art Raymond. Art Raymond was my principal at Fairfield, and he gave me opportunities to make change and to do things differently. Um, but those, like I said, those were 3 good years in my career. One day I was
Uh,
at Fairfield. Go ahead. Go
no,
ahead.
no, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
One day I was at Fairfield, saw this job pop up um on from the Indeed app. Um and I had been interviewing for jobs over the years, and people in Henrico would say, you know what, you really should apply for this associate principal position. I would apply, somebody else would get it. I was like, it's fine. I'm happy here at Fairfield. Well, one day this job from West Point Public Schools popped up, and it was Director of Special Education and Student Services. And being from King William, West Point is the town located within King William County.
Okay.
And so I knew the area well. Did not think that they would hire someone like me to work in their Sun Central office. Young black male. At the time I had a mohawk haircut. I had a part in the side of my head. Just did not think that I was the fit or the look. Um, but I applied, interviewed, and I got the job.
Yeah.
And so I went to West Point in that position to lead those areas, to lead all special education, transportation, food service, discipline, safety, threat assessments, school counseling, all of these areas within the school
Wow.
division. Um, and the superintendent entrusted me to do a lot. She entrusted me to work closely with our finance director to work through financial things. When the pandemic hit, I ended up being the lead person in the division to handle to work the division through the pandemic. Um, and so I once again poured my all into the job, poured my all into making a difference and making a difference for and making a difference for students. And there were some significant things that I had to do in that position. When I went there, the division did not have a code of conduct. So we started from
I remember
scratch
that.
writing a code of conduct. Um, the first method for discipline was suspension. There was no alternative to suspension programs, no in school suspension programs. And so we developed some of those things. When it came down to some of the operation things, like this was 2017, the division had not updated their bus fleet since 2011. So that was one of the first things I had to do was go in and start updating the bus fleet. And really, what did I know about that, right? Nothing as an
Right.
assistant principal, but I went in and I learned and I was hungry. So I went in and I worked on all of those things. I worked on special education. I worked on things instructionally. We West Point was not doing collaboration. There was no co-teaching happening. A lot of times, our
Mhm.
students with disabilities were being pulled out of the gen ed class, going to a resource
Yeah.
class, and was more pull out and no push in. Um, and so I helped to reform all of those things. In June 2021, when the superintendent retired, I was asked if I would be willing to serve as the acting superintendent, and I said, sure. I could do that. And help get some things on track. While the school board found the next superintendent. Um, few months passed. We get school open, get folks hired, do some reorganization, start working on strategic plans. We start doing all of these things. October hits, the board, and I'm summarizing this at this point. The board
Yeah.
comes to me and they say, you know, um, would you be willing to serve as the next superintendent of the division? I was completely shocked. Did not see that coming. Did not know where that came from. Um, but I said yes, and so that's how I got there.
So we were not. So I remember when all of that was going on. Wasn't shocked in the least bit. I think for all the viewers and the listeners, what you're hearing is you heard hunger, you heard trust, and then you heard when he had his opportunity, like he went full force at it. So it wasn't like I got it, now I'm gonna sit back and relax. It's like I got it, now I'm gonna go as hard as I can at it. And it doesn't even seem like in some ways you're trying to go for your next position. It's just that in the position that you're in, I heard a coach say this one time, be where your feet are planted, right? Like, so not be looking so far ahead at the next that you're not doing a good job where you're at. So everywhere you've been, you've done an excellent job. Someone sees that and then it's like, oh yeah, because again, any leader, good leader, wants people with them that they know are going to do a good job, right? In some ways, and I know this isn't a biblical podcast, but it's like Joseph, right? Like
Hmm.
everybody knows Joseph is doing a great job. So why wouldn't I want Joseph to be on my team? Because wherever he goes, great things happen. So I want him to be with me. So I mean, I think that's just kudos to you for the what you've done every position you've been in.
Always in whatever position I was in, I always gave it my all, and continue to give it my all. You know, I am the type of person that's going to put the hours in, that's going to do whatever I have to do to make sure that I'm being successful at my job. But I'm also, like I said before, I'm truly student centered. And so I believe in making sure that we remove barriers to make sure that every single child can be successful. And I think because I keep those things at the forefront of what I do, to me, it's like I said, it's never been about the money. It's never been about the title. It's always about students. It's always been about working hard. It's always about giving my best. Um, then when I keep those things at the forefront, then I know that I'm doing the right thing. And I know, like you said, this is not a biblical podcast. I know, I'm just gonna say it, what God has for me is
Mhm.
for me. And I
Yep.
know that
Yep.
he will never put too much on me. He will never put more on me than I can bear. He will order my steps and make sure that I am in the right place at the right time. And so he has done that in my life, not only in my professional life, but in my personal life as well. And for that, I'm grateful.
So how do you, switching gears a little bit, at each spot that you've been in, and I know you, so I can speak to this. You are really big and good on fostering collaboration among stakeholders, right? Like in order for us to get to, like you said, the children are first. In order for us to get there and for them to be successful, all of us have to come together and work together in order to make this thing happen. I'm seeing that right now with you at West Point, right? Like you have pulled a community together, which was already a great community, but you've pulled a community together to make sure that we're doing what's best for kids. But you do that in a way that is collaborative. I'm not telling you what to do. We're going to work together to get this done. Like, what are strategies that you've used to do that?
And that you know me, so I am not, yes, I have all the degrees, right? Have my doctorate and everything, but I am not very textbook.
Yeah,
I am who I am, and so when I look at those strategies, I look at really making sure that voices are heard, making sure that people have a seat at the table. When decisions are made, it's important that teachers have a voice. When some decisions are made, it's important that students have a voice. And when decisions are made, it's important that parents and community members have a voice.
yeah,
And so I pride myself on that. And while I'm not always the one that is doing the work, that's the way I lead my team. I lead my team by setting the example for them and encouraging them to make sure that all voices are heard, that everyone has that opportunity to be heard and to be and to be seen when decisions are made. And there are always going to be some decisions within leadership that as a leader you just have to make yourself. But teachers buy into things when they know that they're being heard. And even when you can't do everything that they want you to do or the way they want it to do, when they know that they have at least had the opportunity to share their thoughts, their opinions, and their viewpoints, they respect you for that.
yeah,
And so constantly in my leadership, when I meet with my superintendent's cabinet or my superintendent's advisory, I want to know. I don't always come to the table with this structured agenda. Sometimes I come to the table with my notebook and I lean back in my chair and I tell them, all right, y'all talk to me. Tell me what's going on.
yeah,
Let me know what's happening. What are the concerns from your colleagues? People want to be heard. People want to feel like that they're listened to and that they're heard. But people also want opportunities.
yeah,
And I think that's important. And that's important when decisions are made, but that's also important when we talk about leadership, right? And growing the next generation of leadership is to make sure that people have opportunities to lead and to be successful and to be coached in a way that they can grow and continue to learn. And so when all of those things are done, I feel like I find that you end up with a strong sense of collaboration. um, In West Point, one of our core values is relationships. Relationships are important to me. We can't do anything without relationships. We can't do what we do without our students, our teachers, our staff, our community members. People are what make West Point Public Schools the great school division that it is. And so, in order to build those relationships, you got to make sure that people are heard and that they're seen. And so, taking time opportunities to have sessions right before spring break, I met with our SCA. That was some of the best
okay,
time for me to meet with students, for students to tell me what's really going on, how they really feel about things. And there were some surprising things that came up in that conversation. Students talk about discipline. Students talk about the culture in the building.
they
Students
do.
talk about how teachers make them feel. Students talk about how other students make them feel. And so, those are just those all of those opportunities together are truly what I feel like help our culture when it comes to collaboration and being collaborative.
So how do you, as a leader, and I guess primarily the superintendency, right? How do you wade through, right, the so not obviously getting into anything specific, but wade through all the things that come with that, right? Like the superintendent position is a political position, right? Like it's
Mhm.
not just I'm coming here and I'm around students all the time. How do you make sure that you're being that political leader for the division or for your school system, advocating for the kids, advocating for your staff, and at the same time knowing when, hey, this is what we're capable of doing and this is what you're not, and really having those hard conversations.
Mhm. So I think that also goes back to some of the work we've done around our strategic plan, and our values in our division. So in our division for our values, we rise: relationships, innovation, student centered, and excellence. And so, yes, the superintendency is very political. I don't get into politics. I just don't. That's how I operate, and my board members know it. Like, so when I'm bringing a policy to you, when I'm bringing something to you, I'm not looking at it from the political lens. I'm
Yeah.
looking at it from the student centered lens. What's going to be best for our students? I don't get into what house is running the government. Is it Republican versus Democrat? Or I don't honestly, I hate to say it this way, but I don't care. Like, it has to be
Yeah.
focused on our students. But I also know that as a superintendent, while I listen to the different voices, while I work through and weave through things, there's another piece to it. And that other piece is, at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. So I always have to do what I believe is right. And what has never failed me in my career is that if I do what's best for students, then I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
What's best for students is not always what's most comfortable for teachers. It's not always what's most comfortable for administrators. It's not always the thing that board members want, but it has to be that student centered piece. What is going to get us the outcome that we want? And the outcome that we want has to be students being successful, students being able to leave West Point Public Schools, able to read, able to write, able to go to college, able to gain employment, able to enlist. And so, keeping that student centered piece, the politics is going to be around, but it's just going to have to stay around. But we
Yeah.
but the focus has to be on our students.
So how does Larry Frazier take care of himself? Again, I know you. So as I've come to know you, then personally for me, I think you do an excellent job of taking care of yourself. I'm not with you all the time. But again, there's a lot of pressure that comes with the job, right? There's a ton of pressure that comes with this, especially in this day or age. How do you take care of you?
You are probably the only person in life that will ever say that I do a good job taking care of myself. But I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah.
Um, because honestly, I would say that I struggle with that. Um, I struggle with self care. We're recording this. It's at spring break. I probably should be, on a vacation somewhere, and I'm not. I'm doing a staycation at home. But the things that I know that I need for self care is, I need quiet time. I need time to myself. Um, my wife and I are complete opposites. I've taken the Myers Briggs 10, 11 times, right? And every time I take it, I am the strongest introvert out there.
Wow.
Most people don't believe it because they see my personality when I'm in schools. They see my personality when I'm leading in church and leading in other things. And so they believe that I am this big introvert, and I'm not. I am truly, they believe that I'm extrovert, but I'm truly an introvert. And so, in order for me to recharge, I have to have some time to myself. I have to have that time that's just quiet. I don't need the TV on. I don't need I just need peace.
Yeah.
And that's what I just have to do at times, whether it's late at night. Um, I am not a person that sleeps a lot. I don't get a lot of sleep. I stay busy. But oftentimes I just need to lay there in the quiet, just to reflect, and just to recharge myself.
Yeah. What would you give to a person who is just trying to get into school leadership, whether that is I'm becoming an admin intern, I'm becoming an assistant principal, I'm becoming a principal, I'm becoming a central office individual, I'm becoming a superintendent. What would be some key things you would want them to know?
I guess this goes back to a word that I used earlier that you said you hadn't heard in a while, and it's hungry. You have to show people that you're hungry, and by doing that, you are taking initiative. You're showing people that you're dedicated, that you're committed, and that you are passionate about what you do. You have to be in this game for the right reasons. And for me, the right reason is always students and being able to make that to make an impact. You have to have integrity. You have to work hard. Um, and so I would tell the next generation or those up and coming leaders that it is important to have a mentor, have someone that you can talk to, that you can have a safe zone where they're not judging you, that you can say anything to them, you can ask them any question, um, because that's what helps us. We all in our careers need someone to talk to, and so when you work hard, you have that integrity, you're hungry, you have somebody to talk to. I believe, and you're doing this stuff for the right reasons, then I believe that anybody can be successful. And those are the things that I promote to folks that I help. Um, I am that guy that never tells someone that they can't call me, they can't ask me a question. I am a listening ear to many people. I have people that I've worked with that are now principals that are somebody that worked with me is even a superintendent now. And anytime they need help or support, I'm going to be there to help them. Um, and so that's why I say, having that mentor, I believe is very important.
Cool. Well, look, we are getting close to the end. I got three more questions I want to give you to kind of tap your brain a little bit on these. The first question is, what is a book for you that is been the most influential for you in your leadership journey?
So this question is hard for me. Um, and I guess it's hard for a couple reasons. I probably don't, especially since I finished my doctorate a couple years ago. I have not been picking up books
Yeah.
like I probably should.
I've
At
heard
some
everybody say that. Everyone who does a doctorate, they say the same thing. They
at
stay
some
away
point
from books for a little bit.
the brain just gets the brain just gets a little tired. Um, but one book, and this might be a little cliche, is definitely um Good to Great.
Mhm.
Um, and I say that because while it just doesn't focus solely on education, it really focuses on being able to take things to the next level.
Yeah.
And so that E in West Point is excellence. So that E in Rise is excellence. And so I'm always about being able to make sure that we are doing that we're excellent in all things we do. And so when I think about Good to Great, it's how do we take something that's good, that's in good shape, and take it to the next level. So I think that is definitely the book that 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 I would say is definitely one for everybody to read at some point. Um, you didn't ask me this question, but I'm gonna throw this
Okay.
out there in case somebody's listening. If you ask me what I'm reading right now,
Okay.
so like I read more articles now than I do books. And so one thing that I'm really reading right now and I'm focusing on quite a bit now is AI and how we
Yes.
can use AI to help us in education and how we can get teachers to embrace it, get leaders to embrace it, because there are so many things at our fingertips that that can make our lives easier, that can make our work easier, so we can make sure that we're in classrooms and we're present for students. Um, so anytime a good article on AI comes up in my email or whatever, like I'm always gonna flag that so I can go back and read it. So I can get some tricks of the trade.
I heard somebody say that it might have been Gary Vee, who big business individual, but he made the comment that, people are scared of AI, that they'll be replaced. And he said, you won't be replaced by AI. Like AI is not going to replace you. He said, the person who uses AI is going to be the person who replaces you, right?
Mhm.
Because they're not scared to use it. They figured it out and now they're using that tool, and if you're fearful of it, you're just going to get left behind. So I'm totally with you. I'm doing the same thing. Learning more about it. It is an incredible tool when used appropriately. And that's with every tool, right? When used
Absolutely.
appropriately, it's good. Um, 5 dinner guests, dead or alive. So you got to give me 5 dinner guests, not including you. So you're number 6 at the table. So 5 dinner guests, dead or alive, that you would want to sit down with.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself for asking people hard questions like this.
Make you think a little bit.
So I think, all right. So one of them that's alive. My mother's always invited to the is always invited to the table. Um, my mother is an incredible woman, an incredible mother, an incredible leader. She is the chair of the school board in the neighboring locality, and so she and I had the education talk. And I knew that she always is one of my biggest cheerleaders. So my mom is always at the table.
Okay.
Growing up, there were several people in our church and in the community that I looked up to, and I would love to have them at the table to talk to them now, so they can see where I am and the things that I've been able to do. Um, and the thing and those things, whether the things that are in my personal life or in my professional life. So one of them was a deacon at my church. Her name is Deaconopoly Kersey. And she's actually one of my cousins, but I know then she was proud of me, and so I would just love the opportunity to talk to her and to talk and to show her what I'm doing. Another one, keeping it like close to the family, like that, would be my aunt. One of my aunts, who was my favorite aunt, she passed away in church in my arms. Um,
Mm.
my first year as an assistant principal at Fairfield.
Oh,
Very traumatic. I don't think that's one experience that I will never shake in life.
yeah,
But growing up, people often thought that she was my mother because I was always with her. She taught me a lot, um, and just and also gave me opportunities. When a lot of people thought that children should not be at the table, she made sure that I was at the table.
yeah.
Um, and so she's definitely one. Um,
She got 2 more.
this one is okay. So Dr. Deborah Jewel Sherman. Dr. Deborah Jewel Sherman was superintendent in Richmond City
Mhm.
and was one of the first superintendents that tied accreditation and school performance to her contract.
Yes.
And like as I've always, like, even as a young person, right? Like, I was always intrigued with the superintendency thing. Um, I was always intrigued by her and her leadership and how she was able to turn schools around in Richmond City. So I would love just to sit at the table and have her there, just to talk about her journey, how she was able to do things, and to get some nuggets from her.
That's a good one.
Um,
You got
one
one
more,
more. This is
one
a
more.
good list too. I want to sit at this table. I want to hear these combos.
So I have a couple of mentees, a couple of people who, like I said, I coach, I support, I listen to, I give them advice, I let them vent to me, and so I would want. I'm not putting anybody's name out there, but I would say I would want one of them
Okay.
to have a seat at the table, because while those other people have poured into me, I want to be able to pour into my mentee and to have them pour into them as well.
Okay.
Because we have to keep this thing going, right? It's not
Yeah.
about me. It has to be about us and
Yeah.
doing this and doing this together.
Love it. Last question for you. Who would you want to grace the podcast? But it's got to be somebody you can help us get. So it's got to be someone you can help us get. But who do you think would be great for the podcast?
All right, this is probably the easiest one.
Okay.
Um, sure you remember from your days in Henrico, Pam Bell.
Okay.
Pam
Yes.
Bell,
Yep.
Pam Bell is a rock star. She's currently doing some work with us in West Point now, um, supporting us on some projects and whatnot. But her energy and her passion and her journey through education and through leadership, I think would be a phenomenal guest on this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. But I remember meeting this guy. I met her a couple of times. Her energy is crazy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Her energy is crazy.
And she brings it
Um,
every day, every day.
every time I met her, it was the same. Like it wasn't a time I met her where I was like, oh, she's a little different. Nope. And then I felt like you could feel her energy coming. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't like you had to be like mirror. You could feel her coming. Uh, so look, man, I appreciate you. I feel like we can go even deeper. I truly want those of you who are listening to the podcast, watch the YouTube channel. I agree with Dr. Frazier. If you do not have a mentor, you don't have not even just a mentor, but someone you can talk to who can be honest with you, who can be open, can be transparent with you. You can share what's going on with you. And those are individuals who can listen and take in what you're saying and also be honest with you about things that you may need to do. One of the reasons, and I'll go all the way back to the beginning of this interview, where Dr. Frazier said that he wasn't going to take or, go for the assistant principal job. And he said that we were like, hey, you need to do that. One of the reasons we were like that was because he was the same way with us. So if there was something that was going on, he wasn't about to allow us to be like, what we can't do, what, I don't want to do. And so that was big, and it still is big for us right now. Like, even when we either, because we're fearful or we just are tired or we want to do something, we're not going to allow each other to settle, right?
Mhm.
We know each other good at what we do. We know the work that we are hungry and we work hard. So you might as well just go ahead and do it. And those are great people to have with you. So if you don't, take some time to find those individuals and keep them close as you grow in your leadership journey. So appreciate you. Love you. Everybody keep leading, stay hot. Looking forward to the next episode.
Appreciate you, man. Love you right back.